Hello, everyone. My book about stroke recovery is now available for purchase on Amazon. It's called The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened. In the book, you will find chapters on mindset, the brain that resides in your heart, as well as the brain that resides in your gut. You will learn about all the benefits and downsides to neuroplasticity. You will learn the benefits of getting better sleep. You'll find out about the food that you should avoid after stroke, the amazing benefits you get from the smallest amount of exercise. You will learn what happens when you follow your heart's desires and how it can transform your recovery. And you will learn about the amazing benefits you get from surrounding yourself with the right people and how to discover your life's purpose. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book to learn more. Now, this is episode 289, and my guest today is Chet Ciccone, who was 27 in 2016 when he experienced a hemorrhagic stroke due to a previously undiagnosed arteriovenous malformation, also referred to as an AVM.
Yeah,
Chet Ciccone, welcome to the podcast.
thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. You're another AVM brother.
That's
Tell me,
right.
tell me about what happened to you, man.
It was 2016. I was 27 years old. Just had like a pretty normal day at work. I was working as a geotechnical engineer, so it's a subset of civil engineering, and made it all the way home. Decided to unwind and play some competitive video games online, which is not really unwinding. It's kind of intense.
Yeah.
And obviously got my blood pressure going a little bit. And halfway through one of the games that we were competing in, I just started to feel really warm and kind of confused a little bit. And so we finished the game, but I go to the bathroom and just wash my face because I was feeling so warm and uncomfortable. And just walking to the bathroom, I kind of knocked over some stuff that was in my apartment and noticed that my balance wasn't great, my coordination, and made it to the bathroom and washed my face. But I just knew something was wrong. I had no idea what it was. And ironically, like at that exact moment, one of my best friends and roommates came home from work. And so he opens the door and he's all excited, like, oh, hey, like, what's going on? Because we always greet each other and we're always excited to see each other. But he could just tell that something was wrong with me. And I was like, because I was not excited at all. And I was just like, yeah, I don't feel all that great. And well, he's like, all right, we'll just sit down. And so I sit down and he's asking me questions and whatnot. And as time goes by, I go to move my left arm and I think I'm moving it, just to lean on a door, but I end up punching the door frame because I have no awareness of where that arm is in space. I have no control of that arm. I still had a little bit of feeling because it hurt. But and so I was like, that's weird. Like I can't really feel this arm. And so yeah, I just couldn't feel my arm at all. And my friend who had just come home, he had worked in like a old folks home, retirement home as one of his jobs. So he was just kind of aware of stroke symptoms and what to look for. And so as time went on and I started getting worse, he suspected that I was maybe having a stroke. Sure, it didn't make sense to him because I was 27 and seemed, really healthy. But so luckily him and one of my other roommates decided to call the ambulance and they got there and asked if I could walk downstairs and I said no, like I definitely can't walk. And I started to really lose my memory at this point. I remember the ambulance ride there, kind of realizing that the paramedics were asking me questions to like keep me alive. It felt like they were trying to like keep my attention, and I noticed that. And I was like, okay, this is like really serious. So I was just kind of in a daze or whatever. And once I realized that like my life was on the line, I like really I tried to stay focused and answer all those questions and pay attention. And I wasn't really scared. I was just really determined and focused. And at some point during the ambulance ride, I had started just vomiting over and over, which I guess is common when you have blood on your brain. And we got to the emergency room, and I'd actually checked later, like because I was playing this online video game, so I had like chat messages with a timestamp on them, and then I was able to look on Google Maps to like when I arrived at the emergency room, and it was only 45 minutes from like the initial onset of symptoms to getting to the emergency room. And I think because of the vomiting and because of my symptoms, they diagnosed me pretty accurately, and they even assumed AVM like very early on.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's 100% the reason that I've been able to recover so well, and, or the reason I'm even alive, because, I had a roommate come home, perfect timing, kind of knew what a stroke could look like, and got me to the hospital like as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So that
Blessings.
just shows like, yeah, that just shows how important stroke awareness is, and teaching people about the symptoms of stroke, because you never know who you might save, like just knowing about a stroke. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was on April 11th, and they were able to stop the bleeding that day. My memory is pretty foggy of some of those times, but uh they went in with a catheter and shot like some kind of glue. Uh
Mm-hmm.
it's called embolization,
Mm-hmm.
and stopped the bleeding. But they wanted to wait to do surgery. For whatever reason, maybe they knew that my brain would swell. I guess the younger you are in these instances, your brain tends to swell as a reaction to your brain bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, on the 7th, I think their plan was the 18th. They were going to wait 7 days to do a small incision in my skull, go in there, clean everything out, and try to remove the AVM. But I never made it to that surgery date. I ended up flatlining on the 17th, and which was a crazy experience. Basically, my parents had been staying at a hotel nearby, just to obviously to check up on me and support me in all the ways. And it was just another night where I was saying goodnight to them, and they were going to go back to the hotel. So I say goodnight, love you, all that stuff. They leave, and I don't know how long after, but that's when I flatlined. And so they called back like, "Oh, he's not doing well. You guys have to come back." And what I remember was like uh kind of replaying all the family members that had visited me through my whole time, that whole week I had been in the hospital. And then all of a sudden I'm with my grandma, like in this like yellow sky on pink clouds. So, you know, obviously depending how spiritual you are or how sound scientific you are, because I had
Yeah.
been on I'd been on opioids for a week, right? Like been on Dilaudid, painkillers, morphine, whatever. I'm either hallucinating or I'm in heaven with my
Yeah.
grandma.
Yeah.
Which, so personally, I feel like, I was actually with my grandma. That's what I like to believe.
Much nicer.
But I totally accept if somebody wants to say that I was just hallucinating on drugs. I'm fine with that too.
I like it. I like it. It's something for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, and yeah, that was it. I woke up, and basically my brain had swelled uh too large for my skull, and that's what had made me flatline. So they had to do an emergency craniectomy where they were just going to do a small circle just to focus on the AVM. Now it's a new issue. It's not just my brain bleeding, it's my brain needs space. So they cut almost a third of my skull off, put it in the freezer, and that just gives my brain room to swell. And so I wake up to my mom, and she just is trying to explain, hey, don't touch the right side of your head because you had a major surgery, we almost lost you. And uh
It's not there.
obviously just like a very powerful moment between mother and son because, I almost just passed away. Um, but then kind of fitting because I am sick right now. The next thing that happened was a doctor came in and was like, just trying to break down, like, hey, you probably can't feel the left side of your body. And I'm like, oh, hey, I can't. And explaining my symptoms to me and why they exist. And he was like, as time goes on, hopefully you'll feel better. But maybe when you get sick, like some of these symptoms will come back, which definitely like years later, the first time, maybe a year later was the first time I got sick after my surgery. And I got all this numbness like coming back times 10 on the left side. And it's really scary to not, once you've had it once and you associate it with a stroke, when you get that numbness on that side of your body, it freaks you out. Like I've gone to the dentist and gotten numbed and it's like really anxiety inducing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would notice like every time when I do get sick, uh that numbness would come back stronger and dizziness would come back a little stronger.
And
But
then
now I'm
does it
eight.
settle? And then does it settle after you get better?
It does for sure. And now 8 years later, like I didn't feel that at all with this sickness that I have today. So 8 years, things have changed so much. And I think that's why people get so annoyed, stroke survivors, when they hear the 1 year thing, because yeah, in 1 year, like a lot of things change, but so many things have changed in my recovery since just 1 year. Like I
That's my
find improvements every year. So
that's my biggest issue is that the people who are just starting their journey are getting ill informed about the long term possibilities, um, and then they they do it tough, for the first 12 months, 24 months, wondering, that's it, is that it, and then probably losing hope. And that's the point of the podcast. Is I love it the most when I get people who are 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out, because then we can really demonstrate the changes that have occurred in the recovery journey, and that stroke recovery is not like breaking a leg. You don't have a 6 week recovery period and then you're back on your feet, a little bit of rehabilitation to get the muscles working again, and then you're done. It's not like that. 6 weeks in a stroke recovery is, 12 months in a stroke recovery. It's just like you've broken your leg. Like so early on in the journey, and a lot of things have to change and settle, and we can adapt, and so can the brain. And people just need to know that this is a long game, not a 12-month thing.
yeah, and there's so many factors too, because like my recovery is not just a straight line. Like,
Mm.
oh, now I'm better. Like it was like within a year I went back to work, but that was too early. And then I realized that I had a regression, tried to like switch careers and got really good physically, but I had never emotionally thought about anything that had happened to me. And PTSD came. And so then I'm going from like, oh, I'm up here and I'm like 70% better, like I think I'm better. And then got worse than I ever was within my first year of recovery. I would have rather have like, been back in the hospital because I was emotionally just like
Mm.
depressed and in panic attacks every day. So like, what is recovery? Is it your physical recovery from stroke, or is it how you feel just as a human, like how happy you are? Like, because sometimes you would trade um depression for any of your physical ailments.
I've
Um,
I've got um I've got a model that I'm working on to explain what recovery is, and it goes some way. It's a very high level model. It's doesn't break down the details to the next level. But what it does is it talks about emotional recovery, physical recovery, and mental recovery. And if you don't do one of those three, you're not going to get anywhere near being able to say that you're recovered. Now, I've got left side deficits. I wake up in the morning, my left side needs to wake up a little, it takes a bit longer. When I'm
mhm,
tired, I get, I lose my balance. And when it's hot, my left side plays up and, it's not as strong and has a little bit spasticity in the muscles. So it hurts from time to time. And I still think I'm fully recovered because I've done the emotional work. I know that physically my AVM's been removed, so it's not going to bleed again. And I've done the mental health work. So I've been in counseling where I've attended to my emotions and my thoughts. And I'm doing the physical work as much as I can by going, say, to the gym twice a week for an hour in total.
mhm.
And I'm just doing, I'm eating better. I'm trying to sleep better. I don't drink alcohol. So I've done all these things, and I'm at that point where I can. When people say to me, "How are you going with your health?" I'm like, "Yeah, fully recovered." But I don't have great days every day. There's a lot of bad days still because of what I went through, and I just put them down to, like now going through a little bit of a cold. I just put down my stuff to it's like a cold. I'm having a bad day. The symptoms are worse, and if I rest and I eat okay and I don't overdo it, um, I'll be back to normal. I don't know, whatever normal is now for me. Normal, my normal
Mm.
self again in a couple of days. And it's a similar kind of experience for people who don't know what an AVM is. It's an arteriovenous malformation. It's a malformed blood vessel. It usually is described by doctors as being kind of like steel wool, and because of the way that it's formed in a really clear, tight, curly pattern, small high blood pressure episodes, like just from simple exertion, right, Chet? Like from either playing sport or
A video game in my
a,
my instance.
a video game, getting overexcited can just cause it to pop, that blood vessel to pop because they're tiny, they're really little, they're not massive. So that they're a little weaker than normal as well. They can pop and bleed, and the challenge is whether that you can stop the bleeding or not. And in some cases they do, in some cases they don't, and some people are catastrophic bleeds and they don't make it, and other people do. So you didn't have high blood pressure. You didn't have any of the regular fast symptoms. you know, you didn't need to look after your supposed cholesterol levels and your blood sugar levels and all that kind of stuff. You were just a regular guy going about business, didn't know about this thing that you were born with. And what's weird is I hear about AVMs all the time, and they're possible to have all over the body.
Yeah, I have a friend with one in her hand, actually.
Uh-huh. Tell me about that. How does that
Uh,
affect her hand?
I mean, she just has like a finger that you can literally see this large vasculature running through it. And so that finger is, less useful,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know, she's gone, maybe you can interview her too. She's gone on her whole journey of like, they try to embolize it and then it's failed. I don't know. I'd imagine because AVMs are like 1 in 200,000 or something,
Uh-huh.
and I
We're
think
that rare.
most of them are in the brain as far as I
Yeah.
know. So she's even more rare.
Right.
But we don't. I talk to her almost every day, but we don't actually talk about her hand. So I don't know. I don't know how much I'd be comfortable saying
Yeah, I
about
hear
her.
you.
But
I
yeah,
hear you.
it's
Yeah,
just
it's not something that you talk
being
about. It's
it.
just
It's
people.
more of like a physical ailment, like
Yeah,
a visual probably thing, especially as a woman, to have something visible on your hand.
yeah,
That's I would assume that's the most of her uh
yeah,
issues, but I don't want to speak too much for her. So
yeah, yeah. But it's different from other people's strokes in that a lot of most strokes, 80% strokes are ischemic strokes, blood clots, something stopping blood flow in the brain. And then 20% are hemorrhagic strokes, and hemorrhagic strokes are caused by AVMs or they're caused by um, uh,
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
man, I've gone blank now. They're caused by
aneurysm,
the bulging of the blood
that's
vessel,
the aneurysm.
the aneurysm.
Yep.
And then sometimes they're caused by a cavernous angioma, which is a similar weird shaped blood vessel that apparently you can have a cavernous angioma form later on in life. People don't necessarily have them,
Oh,
they're not
you're not
born with
born with
them.
it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
sometimes. And then what's weird about the cavernous angioma is it can be brought on by x-rays.
Oh,
So there's some evidence that some cavernous angiomas can be brought on and can form after people go through an x-ray for some reason. Um,
scary.
yeah. So there's too many ways. There's way too many ways. That's what I found nearly after 290 episodes, Chet. There's so many ways that people can have a stroke. It's ridiculous, right? It's just
Yeah.
intense. Um, so you've spent the first 7 days in hospital, then you've woken up, half your skull's missing. It's in the freezer. You can't feel your left side, is it, or your right?
Left side, correct.
You can't feel your left side. And then how does the journey go after that? How do they finally kind of rehabilitate you enough to get you home? What does that look like?
So I had a great doctor because um, they gave me physical therapy. Maybe a physical therapist came in one time and tried to get me to move my left arm and whatnot and see if I could move my fingers and move my left leg. And it was limited. And they're trying to get me to walk and I couldn't yet. And then I'd say within a week, I think I walked while I was still at the hospital, maybe. It's hard for me to remember, but regardless, I got to a certain point where it was like, okay, he's all they really care about is can he survive if he leaves here? It's like, sure, we'd love if you could walk. Not necessary. It's like, can you breathe? Can you eat? Can you drink? And then can you walk would be great. And that's all they really care about. And that's all the insurance companies care about. And so I was going to be discharged from the hospital, uh, very disabled, I would say. And my doctor's like, no, we know we have scientific studies that show the more rehab you get early on, the better. So we want him to go to this acute rehab center. And so thankful to my doctor for that because I got sent to uh, an inpatient rehab center, which was a huge upgrade in food too. I was the hospital food was terrible for I didn't eat, mostly I was on IV for a lot of the time, but once they were trying to get me to eat, the food was terrible. But then I go to this inpatient rehab center which is, everyday physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and good food. And I was there. So if my surgery was on the 17th, I just know I really wanted, I had a girlfriend at the time and I wanted to get discharged by her birthday, which was May 9th. So when I went to the rehab, I'm not very sure. I just know surgery was 17th and May 9th I got out.
Mm-hmm.
But so in between there, they transferred me in an ambulance to this rehab center, and that's where, my rehabilitation really started. And I don't know about you. So do you know where in your brain your AVM was, like as
It's
far as lobes?
it's I don't know the lobe. It's 4 centimeters, which is about 1.5, 2 inches, I think, something like that, from the ear, from my right ear, near the cerebellum, very very
Okay. So
close
it's
to
like
the
the back
cerebellum.
of your temporal lobe.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So I don't know where I was going with this.
you were just about to tell me about where in your head the injury happened.
Yeah, I don't know. But so mine was in the parietal lobe, which is your main sensory, which contains your primary sensory cortex. And so the right side of my brain, sensory cortex, that's the reason I can't feel the entire left side of my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oh, this is what I was going to say. So people who have a right hemisphere brain damage oftentimes suffer from anosognosia, which is where they're not aware of their deficits. And so I was wondering if you experienced this at all, but I had it really bad. Like, uh, it's kind of a superpower if you're still, if depending how bad your brain damage is, because if there's a level, because if you have very severe damage, you can only recover so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I was blessed to be at the hospital as quick as I was, so I have a lot of room to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And so not being aware of a deficit when you have a lot of room to recover gives you this false sense of confidence,
Mm-hmm.
which I think allows for a little more recovery. But basically what it was like I would think I was fine and nothing was wrong, which is very dangerous. You can hurt yourself because, I couldn't walk, but I was very drugged in the hospital and had to pee. So I just got up to go pee and just stepped right out of the bed and fell
Mm-hmm.
and, could have killed myself.
I did that
Um,
exact same thing day one.
yeah. And it was probably a little bit of not being aware. Do you have any other recollection of not being aware of your deficits?
Well, yeah, a few times. So when I woke up from surgery, they told me you need to go to the toilet to just do the regular movement thing, bowel movement thing and all that type of stuff. So I said, okay, no problem. So I stepped out of the bed on the left side, big mistake, because my left leg was the one that wasn't working.
Yeah.
And there was a nurse. I'm about 6 foot. Sorry, I'm about 5'10", somewhere there, and this nurse would have been 4 foot, nothing, right? And she was really small and tiny framed, and she comes and she goes, "I'm going to help you get there, and just lean on me," is what she said. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I stepped out, I leant on her, and fresh scar, just stitched up, literally hours earlier, and I'm on my ass in the ward outside of my bed, just screaming, "Ah!"
Yeah.
And I had no idea. But then it wasn't that, and then I knew, right? I knew what my deficits were. But then when I was at home, I did get up off. So when I was at home, just a little while after um, surgery, so I'd say about maybe, so I was in surgery November, late November. I got home just before Christmas, and then I was at home from about the 24th of December. And I reckon it was in January, sitting on the couch, no one's at home. They've gone to work, kids have gone to school when school's restarted, and I'm having lunch, I'm holding a little plate, and I just stand up and I go to stand up and lean on my left leg, and then the leg has just totally collapsed, and I've fallen onto the couch, didn't break anything, smashed my ribs onto the arm of the couch, fell over and broke the plate onto the concrete. We've got concrete floors. So that was happening, and there was a time where I needed to, okay, I'm going to get up off the couch, stand with my right leg, okay, and then now put your your left leg out, okay, make sure it's touching the ground and tap the ground a few times, and then stand up, and then make sure the knees operational and moving, and then move forward and
See,
take
that's
action.
obviously that's the difference of, you got to go home right away after your surgery. I got to go to a rehab center where they taught me how to get out of bed. Obviously, you were probably a little more capable than I was.
I had
So
a
you didn't.
month in rehab. I had a month in rehab. They got me back on
Okay.
my feet in a month, and they didn't sort of say to me, "Your leg is." They didn't give me that feedback. They didn't say to me, "You're going to need to tell your leg what's happening and talk yourself through this process, and don't step up on your left leg." They didn't give me any of that info. I learned the hard
Yeah.
way, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Like,
Yeah. See, I got the whole like it was probably really annoying to me at the time, but
mm,
they really focused that I made sure I knew how to get up out of a bed and all that
mm.
stuff. Where I had to practice that over and over and over. It was probably annoying, but very necessary. But the another really interesting deficit that I had, which is common on right hemisphere, is left side neglect. Did you experience that at all?
Neglect how?
So I'll just explain to you what it was for me. So basically, my brain completely disregarded things existing on the left side.
Okay.
And so I'm in the rehab center and they have me draw a clock.
Ah,
And I
yeah.
draw a clock and it starts at 12 and it goes to 6 and there's nothing on the left side. I just
Wow.
don't even draw the left side of the clock. But
Wow.
I don't think there's anything wrong. So I'm like, there's my clock and it's good, right?
Uh-huh.
And
I never had that. So even though you knew what a clock was before, and when you were a kid, you did all the numbers and you know that, in
I
this,
still knew what a clock was. My brain just ignored the left side of the clock.
so you represented it half a clock.
Yeah, and I'm solving word searches and I find every word on the right side. I find no words on the left side. And just every single aspect that you could imagine. Like I go to write a word and I don't write the first two letters because it's the left side of the word. So it's just really like it's fascinating to me. It's like
And are they
uh
telling you, are they saying Apple is missing A and P? And then are you going, oh yeah, I can see that it's missing it now? Or are you going, oh no, it's all good?
I don't remember well enough to really answer that question, but
Mm,
I think mostly a lot of what they were doing early on was confirming things. Uh because I'm actually in school right now to learn how to be a speech therapist, which was some of the therapy that I received in rehab because that's what I want to do. I want to work with brain injury folks and help them in their recovery process because
nice.
I really fell in love with the recovery process when I had to go through it. So, um, but from what I gauge is that they were just kind of uh, based on the location of my brain injury, they suspected certain things. So they would test for them to make sure that they are there. And then they say, okay, we have to work on this later. So it wasn't a lot of like, things like that I was terrible at. It's more like just draw the clock. I'm like, okay, is that good for you? And I'm like, yeah. They don't say like, okay, no, it's wrong, and like you're missing this and all that. They just note it down because they know, especially there is a lot of spontaneous recovery, in that first year, and that's where the 1 year thing comes from. But
They're
they
getting a
knew that
baseline.
they knew that by the end of therapy, I would maybe realize that I was missing these things. And they don't want to, I think, because I didn't really notice it, they didn't get real with me probably till a couple days into this rehab. And I remember when the moment was where I realized that, like, oh, this is going to be longer than a few days. because I just thought it was like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to walk again, and then I'm gonna go back to work, and it's all gonna be good. But I I go into this room, and my physical therapist, she has a deck of cards out on the table, a deck of playing cards, and they're all face up. And she gives me a deck of cards, and she says, "All right, all you got to do is flip over a card and match it with its twin on the table." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so easy. Like, I'll do it with my left hand even, you know." And I flip over the card, and it took me a solid like 4 minutes to, I don't know what card it was, but say I picked a Jack of Hearts or something. I'd pull it out, and I'm just looking, and I could not do it. Like my mental processing, whatever it was just impossible for me at that time. And I was like, wow, like I felt stupid. I felt terrified that this was going to be like a permanent thing for me. And that was when I really realized that, I had a lot of work to do.
With the feeling stupid thing, is that just your own insecurities coming up, something that you've had from the past that have come up? Because I'll give you a little bit of an insight. I have these similar conversations with people, and I don't understand them on other episodes. And I don't understand them because I don't experience them. So I'm just trying to understand them, right?
Mhm.
So it took me almost 3 years to get to brain surgery. So I had one bleed. I never once thought, what if this happens again? And then it happened again. And
Yeah.
even after it happened again and they told me it might happen again, I never once thought, what if this happens again?
Yeah.
I just kind of went through it. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I assumed that it wasn't going to happen. And then when it happened, it's like, okay, I better do something about it. And then when I couldn't do the exercises that they told me to do, I was just still thinking like, wow, I can't do that. And that was it. There was no, you're dumb or you're not intelligent anymore. I never had any of those concerns at all, none. And then the other thing I didn't do is kind of when I realized I couldn't walk, I didn't get worried about it. I assumed I was going to walk, and I just went about, what do I need to do to get on my feet? And they gave me 2 months. They had booked me into the rehab facility for 2 months. I got out of there in a month. So it's like I didn't get the anxiety and the thought of all of the stuff that people worry about. I don't know. Maybe didn't have the capacity to worry like that. It's weird. So
I don't know.
what was behind your I feel stupid comment or thoughts about yourself?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was this Anosognosia thing where, I was not aware of these deficits. Like, I just thought I was completely fine, and like I was gonna be out of rehab in a couple of days, which is crazy. Like I could not walk. Obviously I couldn't, whatever that is, reading, I don't know, comprehending playing cards. I don't know what, real process that is, but um I think it was just the first time that something broke through that lack of awareness. I
Uh-huh.
was so unaware of my deficits. Something finally broke through it, and it just scared me. And,
Mm,
I don't know if it's directly like an intelligence thing, but maybe also too, just like, because I was an engineer,
uh-huh.
maybe I considered myself intelligent, or like I valued that piece of me. So to like see me fail at a task that I thought going in, oh, this is going to be so easy, and to
Uh-huh.
completely fail, especially, as time goes on, you're holding this card in your hand, it's more and more time, like you get really embarrassed, and then you start to think about, oh, it's taking so long, you're not even focusing on your task, so it was just a really eye-opening thing. And I think that's why she did it, because I had so much confidence, and you know, I was just so confident. She had to like bring me down to earth a little bit and like really show me, where I was. So probably just the length of it, because I think if anyone asked you, to match a card with another card, and you stood there for 5 minutes failing, it would it just kind of hit me.
I hear you. You might start feeling a little, yeah, a little nervous or what have you. But um And I get that. I totally get why people would.
Mm.
Like, I get why they would. I don't understand why I didn't. And I don't know. Maybe it
Like,
was what you said. It's just that you had the realization. I didn't have the expectation. I think I'm intelligent, but I didn't have the expectation that my intelligence. Okay, so my identity. This is what it might be. My identity didn't cop a beating when I couldn't remember a word or fix this or fix that or answer this or answer that. I didn't identify less intelligent because I couldn't do this after brain surgery. I kind of associated brain surgery with messing up your head, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what happens after brain surgery.
yeah. And see, maybe my anosognosia thing was just like, I didn't even have brain surgery. So like, I'm
Uh,
fine. You know what I
right.
mean?
Wow.
Maybe I didn't have that to relate to like a lack of intelligence or something. So
Wow.
I just think, oh, I'm fine, but no, I'm stupid now. Like, so that's
Wow.
why it's so the thing like the left side neglect and the anosognosia are so fascinating because no matter how much you tell the person who's going through it at that time, they just can't, the brain just doesn't even compute it. So it's like, it's just, I don't know. It's a amazing thing. Some people, I was blessed to slowly feel my left side neglect disappear. I'd
Uh,
say 6 months was probably when I stopped noticing it, but because I had to actively like turn my head and like actively make sure I look at left side paper if I'm trying to, look at some information or whatever. I had to just force myself to recognize the left side of the world for months. But luckily it went away. Some people it never goes away.
yeah. Was that then more energy consuming? So when I had to focus where my leg went, so when I had to look at my leg and make sure that it was that the foot was landing correctly and my knee was in the right position, it would be really exhausting. So did that become more exhausting having to make sure that you're paying attention to your left side?
100% still even to this day. So another thing that your parietal lobe does in your brain is it's in charge of proprioception,
Yeah.
which is knowing where your limbs are in space without
Yep.
looking. You can just feel it. And so for my left side, like I used to drive a manual, a stick shift
Hmm.
vehicle. Once that happened, and I got my license taken away, and then I tried to drive again, I was like, oh, let me see if I can drive a stick shift. Well, the clutch is pushed in with your left foot. Well, if you have no proprioception for your left foot and you don't know where it is without looking, I couldn't push in the clutch without looking, which is not, safe for driving.
Hmm. I've
So,
had that experience.
situations like that. And
So
then,
I'm doing what you guys would call 60 mile an hour. I'm doing 100 kilometers an hour on a freeway in a stick shift because we went to hire a car, and I told them I want an automatic and they couldn't get me one. So I had to drive a stick shift. And in order for me to drive a stick shift, I have to take my shoe off so my left foot can actually have more feeling and know where the clutch is. But even then, I'm doing 100, so I'm probably in fourth, and I'm looking for fifth, and I go to change gear, and I go to press the clutch, and I press the brake instead, and try and crunch the gear at the same time, and then it's a disaster. It's like, oh my god, what am I doing? And then I've got to look down and put my foot on the clutch, and then change gear, and then go again. It's just, yeah,
yeah.
chaotic.
So like even on that note, like even today or current day, not necessarily today, but
Mm.
my friends do like indoor rock climbing in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll go with them because I think it's great, therapy for me and it's fun. But physically, I'm less tired from the climbing than I
Mm-hmm.
am like focusing on your left hand, your left foot, like that mental exercise, I'm so exhausted mentally before I am physically. Not that I'm, I'm still
Yeah,
physically tired. I'm climbing. It's hard.
yeah, yeah.
But the mental part is so much more exhausting for me just because I have to focus on the left. I have to watch it as I do each grab, as I do each step with the left foot.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm gonna miss.
So what about walking next to somebody? So I walk next to my wife from time to time when we go to out or whatever, and I'm always
Yeah.
bumping into her. It feels like there's a magnetic force pulling me into her, and I'm always bumping into her, and she's always going, "You stop bumping into me." And I'm like, I'm not bumping into you. I'm just walking, whatever. And I walk when I'm walking next to somebody, it looks like I'm drunk. I don't know what it is about when people are next to me. When they're not next to me, I can walk perfectly straight.
So I definitely, uh, the girlfriend that I had at the time, I would always make her walk on my right side just
Hmm.
because we'd always want to like hold hands or whatever, and holding my left hand that I couldn't feel was like very creepy to me. Like it
Hmm.
is a very strange sensation. So uh I always preferred just for people to walk on my right side in general. But as far as like walking goes, I think I'm very, acceptable. Like I can feel a slight difference than, before my stroke, but I think most people would not notice. And it's kind of like a warm-up thing. Like you said, when you wake up, your left leg needs to like warm up. It's
Mm.
not just right away. So my first few steps every day are probably a little weird. I'd say the bigger thing is the one of the biggest struggles of the left side neglect was always running into things on the left side of me because
Mm.
my brain was literally not even acknowledging them existing. It was like the left side of my vision was off. So I was always bumping into things. And even though that left side neglect is gone, just the lack of proprioception on my left side, I just went on a snowboarding trip this last few days and I stubbed my toe. We had a cabin and the fireplace had this stone base to it that kind of extended out,
Uh-huh.
and I think it's so nobody puts anything in front of the fireplace. And I
Yeah.
stubbed my toe on that thing, my left toe, like 3 times. Uh,
That's painful.
so I think balance wise, obviously it was my first time snowboarding. I was able to figure that out. So obviously, I have some level of balance. But I think walking passes as normal to the naked eye. I can feel slight differences, but nothing I would bother complaining about.
Mm.
Mine's more like the proprioception is still an issue, and I bump into things and I stub my toe and I kick things with my left foot or trip over things with my left foot.
Yeah, same. Me, doorways. When I'm really tired,
Mm,
I seem to not notice doorways, and just my left shoulder
all the time.
just bumps into them. And then my wife's not allowed to touch my hand when I'm driving. So we drive on the opposite side here,
Yeah,
and I put my hand on it's an automatic car now, but sometimes I rest my hand on the on the
yeah.
shifter, and then she'll just be kind or sweet, and she'll just lean her hand on my hand, and it's like, why are you touching my hand for? Don't touch my hand. It,
Something uncomfortable about it, right?
it hurts. It bloody hurts.
It
And it's like,
hurts.
if you're gonna touch it hard. Like, be rough with it. Don't just be gentle with it. God's sake, woman. And it's been 8 years since my surgery. No, 10 years since my surgery this year. It hasn't changed. She hasn't learnt yet. She's still gentle and nice, and I'm still an idiot. Right? And she still does that, and I
Stop
still,
being gentle and nice with me and
yeah,
loving me.
yeah, and I still overreact. But I can't not. I don't know. It just messes with my entire being. It's
It's
the
very
most
strange.
inappropriate response to something so nice and gentle. And I don't know how to not do it, but
Something creepy about it. I don't know. I always call it my ghost arm.
yeah.
And it was just like, and it's just, I feel maybe it's just a reminder of your stroke, and that's all it is. It's like you have this weird sensation, and it's just, oh, I had a stroke, and it just reminds you of it, and it's just annoying. I don't know.
So one other thing I used to do, Chet, tell me if this happens to you. So I used to wear glasses until the age of 40, and this started happening to me at 37. So the reason I don't wear glasses now is because I had cataract surgery, and I removed the cataracts, and I don't need glasses. But I wore glasses from the age of 5. So after brain surgery, I still had, because it was so close to my eye surgery, only 6 months, maybe 9 months
Oh, wow.
difference, right? I had the eye surgery, and then later on I needed brain surgery. Because it was only 6 or 9 months, I still had the sensation that the glasses on my nose had slid forward,
Hmm.
and I used to slide them back up with my left hand.
Oh,
But
wow.
no, there was no glasses there anymore, but I still had the habit of lifting something that wasn't there
Yeah.
back up, and because the glasses weren't there, I'd poke myself in the left eye.
Oh my gosh. So I didn't actually start wearing glasses. So when I had my brain surgery, they immediately suspend your driver's license in America, at least for a year.
Ah,
And then this kind of segues into another part, but like a year after my surgery, I'm like, all right, let me try to get my license back. But around the same time, I end up having my first seizure. So because of my brain surgery, there's scar tissue on my brain. I'm more susceptible for seizures. They put me on medication. Um, I didn't like how the medication made me feel, so I stopped taking the medication and I had a seizure. But back to the glasses thing. I didn't have to get glasses until I wanted to get my license back, and they're like, okay, well, let's check your vision. And they're like, no, this isn't good enough. You need glasses. So I was like, okay, I have to get glasses. So I didn't wear glasses ever until after my stroke.
ah,
Uh, Stroke was in 2016. I didn't get my license back till 2021. So that was when I started wearing glasses.
right.
But I do, even me, I always use my right hand to pick my glasses up. And when I'm not wearing my glasses, I'll find myself going to do that when there's no glasses there. So I relate to you on that, but different situation because I don't
Um,
use the left hand. And I've never poked myself in the eye or anything
yeah,
like that.
man, that was so annoying. I did it so many times. Um, uh, what's interesting is that nobody took my license away. I had brain surgery. I had 3 brain hemorrhages. Nobody took my license away. I went straight
That's
back
what,
to
yeah,
driving.
that's why I said in America, because I don't know. And I don't know. Also, like I said, I had a great doctor. Um, I'm very happy he did it because I definitely should not have been driving.
Mm,
And I probably would have tried to, just
mhm.
because of my confidence and lack of awareness. But yeah, I don't know what it is. But in America, if you have brain surgery or if you have a seizure, they are the doctor is required by law to send that to our DMV, which is in charge of our licenses and stuff. And they're supposed to put your license on hold for a year, and then you get reevaluated and try to get your privilege back. But
I was told not to drive, but they didn't give me a time limit. They didn't say don't drive for the next 12 months or whatever.
yeah,
So I'm like, okay, no worries. So I drove. I came out of surgery, out of hospital. I got home, like I said, the December the 24th, and then a month later, literally a month later, 4 weeks later, I was driving. I did a 5-hour trip to see a friend of mine who lives quite away from where I live, and I still couldn't feel my left side properly. And turning the steering wheel with my left side was not fun because I had to again make sure that my hand was really holding the steering wheel and I wasn't going to slip out and all that kind of stuff. And I was so fatigued when I got there. I shouldn't have done it, but I was so fatigued when I got there. I couldn't believe how wasted I was. Um, and then I had to drive back 2 days later. And I didn't tell anybody that it was a problem, uh, but I shouldn't have done it. I don't
yeah,
feel like I would. I would not have wanted to be in a situation where I did something, caused a collision, and then injured myself or somebody else. It's so wrong.
Definitely.
But again, I didn't think I should, because nobody said don't drive, you're not allowed to drive, we've taken your license. I didn't think I shouldn't be driving. I thought, yeah, I'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's also another, I'm sure there's people who have had strokes in America, and they, I was missing half of my skull. I
It
had
was
to wear
pretty
a helmet.
obvious.
I had to wear a helmet just to walk. So
Yeah,
probably not a good idea to be driving a car, an accident would be fatal for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So how long were you well, I'm going to ask a few questions. Don't have to answer them straight away and all at once. Okay, so the question is, how long were you living without half your skull? But then, um, were you all right with living with half a skull? Because on your Instagram, you've got some awesome images there of how you've compared yourself to a mountain, like how
Yeah,
your head looks like
it's
a mountain.
the north face of one of the
It's not El
mountains in
Capitan or
Yosemite.
something, is it?
Yeah, it's like the north. I don't know if it is El Capitan. I'm not great. I just went to Yosemite for the first time, but there's actually a clothing brand and like an outerwear brand called the North Face,
Yes,
and
I
their
know.
symbol is that little mountain. And
Ah,
yeah, it's definitely when I went there, I was like, it kind of looks like me.
and it
And
really does, man. You guys could have been twins.
that's funny.
How did
But
you how did you live with that emotionally, mentally? Like, what was that like? That's an interesting thing to be missing half your brain for a period of time. Or your
yeah, I
head.
mean, obviously, I just woke up. There's no decision to be made. I just woke up and that was my life. So when you wake up and somebody says, oh, you almost died, but they cut half your skull off, and so now you're not dead. You don't say, oh, what did they do that for? Like why did they take half my skull? I think I was just, happy to still be around, and it looked funny, and I've always enjoyed humor and been able I appreciate when people make fun of me. I don't get upset at it. I laugh. If it's not a good joke, I might get upset. But if it's a good uh joke, I'll laugh at my own expense anytime.
Right.
And so, you know, as far as appearance wise, they said they'd put it back later, and I believed in their ability to make me look normal again. I feel like I look amazing for what I've
Yeah.
been through.
Yeah.
Most people would never know. I won't have this hair for many more decades, but I think for 10 more years I'll be able to hide the scar that's under there. Because it's a pretty gnarly scar, and there's no hair grows on the scar, so I have a little like racing stripe in my hairline.
Mm-hmm.
But so as far as like appearance goes, I was confident that they would put it back and I'd be passable. The bigger issues were just like sleep.
Uh-huh.
So, I had no skull. All it
Uh-huh.
is just skin, the hair that they left, and then if you touched, you'd feel my brain under there. And it was most of my head on
Did
that
you ever
side.
do that? Did you ever go for the touch?
I did. Yeah, of course. I was curious. And I'd ask other people, I was like, please be gentle, but hey, do you want to touch my brain? And, some people did, and most people were not interested. But it's a unique situation. I actually have my doctor took cell phone pictures inside my head when they were putting it back in. So I have cell phone pictures. The first one kind of looks like a chicken cutlet. So you have a membrane around your brain called the dura mater,
Yeah.
and obviously they have to cut through that if they're going to get to your brain. And if they cut through that, that means they have to replace it with something.
Mm-hmm.
So they replace it with a synthetic one. And so he has a picture. They put that in place. He took a picture. Then they call it a bone flap, which is the piece of skull that was in the freezer. They put that back in. They screw it back together with these brackets and screws. And he took a picture of that. So I have a literal picture inside of my head of my skull, which is super rare. You know, nobody has that.
I wanted something like that, and nobody did it for me.
Yeah, the best you get is like an MRI or something,
Yeah.
right? Like, no, I have literal cell phone
Wow.
photographs of the inside of my head.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's just scalp, hair, and then brain. So I can't lay on my right side at all. I couldn't even lay on my back because it just felt weird. I had to sleep on my left side from April 17th was the day of the surgery until I think it was October 19th. Uh, they put it back in. So that whole time period, I have to sleep on my left side. My left side is already spastic
Yeah.
because I've had a stroke. There's already tightness and, you know, just all kinds of things you're dealing with. And I have to sleep on the same shoulder. So I had to figure out, you know, eventually, excuse me, eventually I got a like a wedge pillow in my bed.
Uh-huh.
And that way I could kind of like sleep not on my head, you know, kind of rest more on my shoulders. And I would use like a neck pillow and the wedge, and that allowed me to sleep, you know, on my back. But I just had to sleep on my left side for so long that I had so much shoulder pain and tightness from who knows if it's from the sleeping or just the stroke. You know, many people just have so much spasticity anyways.
Yeah.
So I'd say that was really like the biggest issue I had with it. Otherwise, it was like uh just a wild experience that I was able to make light of. I enjoyed taking the funny pictures and you know, they saw obviously when they're gonna give you life-saving surgery and you're flatlined, they're not like, oh, let's give them like a really nice haircut. They just shave off, you know, and then they saw your head. Like, so I had a really funny, you know, half my head haircut. So I had a cousin who does hair and she kind of gave me like a mohawk to balance it out or whatever. So, you know, you just make the best of it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It didn't really break my spirits. Obviously, you know, I think for a woman, you know, too, that would be such a more traumatic experience because I think just hair means so much more to them, and to have half your hair cut off and then
Yeah.
just, you know, the way physical appearance is, you know, forced on them to matter more than us ugly guys. You
Yeah.
know, we can live with it a little longer and a little
We
easier, I
can live
feel
with
like.
being uglier even more than we already are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, it's fascinating to see um, that image of you and the way your head looks. I have a coaching client who is currently in that state, and then it's really he's really trying to get to the point where it's not in that state. And what we're working on because he's not really compliant. Maybe it's part of his personality, maybe it's part of the stroke. He's not really compliant with what the doctor's requests are. So
Hmm.
the aim is to try and get him to feel like what he needs to do. If you want to get your skull back, is what you need to do is all the right things so that you can create the right environment for your brain to stop swelling and for the skull to go back. So we've been
Interesting.
yeah, we've been working on that whole let's get your skull back on your head, you know?
I don't feel like you know, my doctors put the onus on me. It was just like, oh, you know, I was eager. I was always like, hey, can we do it yet? And they're like, ah, no, this is enough. But it wasn't like, oh, the swelling's not down enough because you haven't done XYZ. It's just like, oh, you just have to wait more time.
He was drinking. He's been drinking.
That's probably why. See,
Yeah.
I think I had my first drink when I was like 24. So I was never a big drinker anyways. And then
Yeah.
so this happened. So it was really easy for me to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Same.
but I
I,
could
I
see, so if he's making bad decisions that are still causing his brain to swell, then yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, bad decisions in hindsight, but still more just living the way he always lived. That's all. It's just that I've always had a drink. I'll have a drink. That's all.
Totally.
So that
And
causes
I don't know
some.
if he experiences this, but another like interesting thing about that situation is you don't realize how much uh and it makes a ton of sense, but just having a complete seal on everything keeps the pressure inside of your head normal.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I was missing that, if I bent over to tie my shoe or to pick something up, everything would shift in there very quickly, and I would get a sharp, terrible headache almost immediately. And I was like, is this just my life forever? But no, as soon as they put that thing back on, I'm able to bend over and tilt my head, and there's not this dramatic shift. And maybe it was like a quick movement of brain. I don't know what it was,
Right,
but it
right.
just the worst headache. Well, not the worst headache I had experienced, but very
Yeah.
painful headaches. Uh, and so
S-
just getting that kind of equilibrium back together got rid of those headaches, and that was huge for me.
I find it very interesting to learn that your brain is missing its skull and then the dura has been impacted. Where does the cerebrospinal fluid go? Like, does it leak out literally? Do they then, are they able to contain it?
So there's actually, so I'm gonna piss off my neuroanatomy teacher. So I'm in school, so I've to be a speech language pathologist, speech therapist, depending
Yep.
on what you call it. And so I've taken a couple of neuroanatomy classes, but there's actually the dura is not where the spinal fluid goes. It's actually the layer below that,
Uh-huh.
which it's the dura mater and then the arachnoid mater. So
Uh-huh.
the arachnoid mater has these like spider web uh kind of
Ah,
connections, and that's like a spongy space that has gaps for the spinal fluid to go through.
uh-huh.
But I mean, I'd imagine they had to cut through that in mine too. So I still, to answer your question, I'm not exactly sure what would happen to it.
I,
But
I perhaps incorrectly assume that anytime I've seen a brain specimen, it's been in a jar or something like that. So it's, surrounded with a fluid to keep
mhm.
it intact. And I imagined that the cerebrospinal fluid was fluid like in that kind of way, that it seemed liquidy and you could see it gushing or oozing or whatever, but perhaps it's not specifically in that way. And I do recall hearing, people having subarachnoid hemorrhages and then
Exactly.
subdural hemorrhages, so that at the different spaces.
Yeah, there's like three different membranes,
Yeah.
and depending on where your bleed is, they give it those
Okay.
categories.
So the arachnoid layer may be the layer that kind of contains all of the
Spinal
cerebrospinal
fluid.
fluid, yeah, that goes through a system rather than actually physically allowing the brain to float in it.
Correct. Yeah. It's like, yeah. I don't know.
All
I
right,
don't want to.
that's it.
We'll get somebody mad.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, that's just us just trying to work it out. I get you. That's cool. So, no severe loss of brain fluid that they have to refill or anything like that, which is cool. The whole thing is just fascinating. The fact that you're here and I'm talking to you, the fact that the process that you went through was so perfect, 45 minutes in the hospital, immediate, being able to diagnose it immediately and then action to get that sorted, and then uh, amazing doctors, technology, science, man,
Yeah,
everything.
how many years ago does this happen and they don't know how to remove your skull and put it back in?
Yeah,
Like how many years ago did they just say, "Hey, oh
yeah,
well, sorry, Chet, goodbye."
yeah. I don't think it was that many years ago, man, in our lifetimes for sure. I think in our lifetime, for
Yeah.
sure. It's just crazy. I love your sense of humor though, because not only um, do you see similarities between you and the North Face of potentially El Capitan, but also there's a Chet GPT. That's pretty cool. There's a Chet Flix.
Yeah, that's what that was in the deepness of no job, no school, recovery. What do? You just let's make a Chetflix logo.
Be creative.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage people to go to your Instagram and check it out. I'm going to have links to your Insta for people to reach out if they need to.
Cool.
As we wrap up, I wanted to ask you 3 questions. What was the hardest thing about stroke for you?
I would say the mental health aspect of it. I really, when I look at my recovery, I see a great physical recovery, uh, and then a huge mental health dip as I had to process everything that happened to me. That, early on, it felt like a video game. It was like, oh, I just have to learn how to reuse my left side. Like, this is kind of fun. Oh, I got to figure out how to do things differently. This is cool. And then once you kind of plateau your physical recovery for a while, obviously I still improved after that, but once you hit that plateau, then everything emotional hit me. And it was tough, just very, just panic attacks every single day, seizures, the epilepsy, uh, that was, I'd say a seizure is almost scarier than the stroke was. There's a level of like aloofness that comes with the stroke where you're not, obviously your brain's not working 100%, so you're not really aware of what's going on. A seizure, like, oh, I get an aura where I sense it's coming. And that's terrifying. And then the initial, electricity that's going through your brain that you're still conscious for is terrifying. And then the idea of having a seizure in the wrong timing, swimming or driving is terrifying. So that just led to a lot of anxiety, which went along with depression. And then like, what am I going to do? Like, the job I used to work is driving, and I can't drive. I didn't drive for 5 years. So what am I going to do with my life? Am I ever going to make money again? Am I just going to be disabled my whole life? That whole just mental health and identity. Who am I? What can I do in this world still? That was the hardest part of stroke. And I think it took me a whole, I'd say 5 years to just get over the mental aspect of it and to feel like, okay, I'm still myself. I've obviously evolved. There's a new version of me, but I'm okay with it. I love this new version of me, and if I don't accomplish another thing in my life, I'm still happy to just be here. And I kind of had to let go of like the timelines that you create in your mind of like, this is all the things that I'm going to do in my life, and like, in order to, this is my idea of success. I had to reach a point where I had to let all of that go because it was giving me so much anxiety because it just wasn't realistic anymore with the stroke. But I was, that I'll probably end up surpassing all those original ideas that I considered were success with the new direction that I pick and my new goals. I assume I'll be even happier. So just that mental hurdle and re-finding myself, it was just so difficult.
I love what you said about you'll probably surpass all your previous ideas of what success looked like, and that's so true, man. Because I've done that,
Yeah.
and I'm continuing to do that. I might not be a novelist or a literary master, but you know the guy before stroke. Oh, thank you, man. You bought the book. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The guy before stroke doesn't write this book. Like that guy,
No.
he doesn't have no clue what it's like to write a book, and to actually have a 4-year project, because it was a 4-year project for me to get it done with a stroke brain, and my inability to actually understand how to put words together on a page and then make it cohesive and then turn it into something useful. That didn't happen. And I had goals and ideas and thoughts of what success was, and it was all around money, how much money I was going to make and how big my house was going to be and whether it had a pool and what brand of car I had and all that junk, you know,
Mhm.
and being able to get over that and then being able to focus on what I loved and do the things that I desired rather than the things that my head was telling me to do was kind of like a relief. And the stroke led to that. Like it gave me the chance to do these things that I never ever would have allowed myself to do before because I had preconceived ideas of who wrote books, who read books, um, and I wasn't that guy. I didn't identify as that guy. And it's so cool that you said that. I love it because you'll surpass all your goals. I know my niece, as a result of, I'm going to take some credit for this. As a result of what happened to
Mhm.
me, she's gone into speech therapy.
Awesome.
Her granddad also had a stroke. And in her first week, I think it was in her first week of work experience when she finished her degree and then she had to do placement or whatever it's called,
Mhm.
she's gone in and there's a kid who's been in speech therapy for 5 years. He's 5 or 6 years old by now, and he hasn't progressed too far. And she says to the mum, has anyone ever done a mouth check? Have they ever checked the child's mouth to see what's going on inside his mouth? And she said, no, why? And she said, well, sometimes, we just check the mouth to make sure that everything is
Some kind
correctly.
of abnormality.
Yeah. And she said, can I check his mouth? She goes, yeah. Checks the child's mouth and immediately notices an abnormality in the child's mouth. So everybody is trying to work to support this kid and not giving the kid all of the tools, and then also judging that kid on his lack of ability to improve and are questioning his um, intelligence and are questioning all these things. Except they all missed the very first step in assessment, which is open the child's mouth and have a look inside.
Yeah.
And she's been able to do that in the first time she's ever come across a live patient with uh, her first opportunity. And for
It's
me,
sad that that opportunity was there, but great that she got to be the one. It's
yeah,
unfortunate nobody thought of that for 5, 6 years,
yeah.
but awesome for her to, do the right thing.
And it's credit for her, all credit to her, but I'm taking some of that credit too, man.
A little
You know, like
bit.
we've spoken about her career, we've spoken about all these things. She interacts with me a lot about aphasia and other things related to stroke, and that we have this great thing. And I never would have been able to hold a conversation like that with a human that was working in that space if I hadn't been through what I'd been through. I knew how to paint a wall and make your house look good, but that kind of gets old, like who cares? Your house has got a painted wall on it, and it was painted before. It was just a different color. I didn't achieve much. I just changed the color in your house. That's kind of how it's grown for me, like how I've evolved and become this version of myself that I cannot recognize. So I look forward to finding out like what your path ends, where it ends, or where it goes, because it's not going to end in just the next thing that you do. It's going to make a massive difference. And your insight as a stroke survivor, when you're working with people with aphasia or another speech disorder, that's going to just make you such a better therapist because you have
Yeah.
an inside knowledge.
Ultimately, it's like, what I was doing before was like, I went to college and had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I'll pick engineering because that'll get you a job and that'll make it not a waste of time. But I had no connection to it, or like, I didn't enjoy it. Like,
Mm,
sure, it was a job that paid, but then, I have a stroke and I'm introduced to speech therapy and I'm interested in it. And I'm obviously very interested in just brain injuries and the community. And I'm like realizing, oh, this is a career path where like, maybe I don't make as much money, even though it pays well. Uh, but my old goals of the engineering where I didn't really care about it. I was just in it because it made money. Like, oh, now I'm like able to make money and do stuff that I find fascinating and that will be rewarding. Like I can help someone else on the journey that I went through. I can interact with them like very early on in that journey, or maybe later, depending on, where we meet. And who knows, I could have that one little thing like your cousin did. Oh, did you think about this?
Mm,
Have you thought about how you sleep or what you're eating? All the things that I had to learn to feel normal again.
mm.
I can give them one little nugget of information that might totally revamp their recovery process. So that's definitely why I think stroke is the best thing that happened to me, because I feel like it gave me an actual purpose
Wow.
uh
Yeah.
in my career. I feel like as a man, the purpose and like the way you make money or whatever is so important to your happiness. And the fact that I was just kind of mailing it in and just doing whatever because it would pay me,
Yeah.
uh, I'm so much happier to be on a path where I feel like I'm doing something that I actually care about and can also pay me. So,
In the book, in the acknowledgements, there's an acknowledgement. You'll read it at the end. It's to Louise Gilbert, a friend of mine, and she, before she was a friend of mine, she was a coach. So I she was a life coach. So I decided that very early on in my recovery, I was going to get life coaching, counseling, like everything. I threw everything at this, and she and everyone who knows me and Louise knows that I could say this about her quite comfortably. And she, the bitch, made me stop drinking sodas. If I didn't stop drinking sodas, she would not work with me. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm coming here to get your services. I'm paying you. That should be it. That we're not, there shouldn't be any more. She goes, if you don't stop drinking sodas, I can't work with you. That's
wow.
it. And I'm like, what are you talking about, woman? Anyhow, I just kind of said, all right. I didn't believe that I was going to stop. I told her I would, but I didn't believe I would. And I was just going to go back to session one and we're going to kick it off from there. But sure enough, that thing that she said to me made me stop drinking sodas. And that was after my brain surgery. Sorry, and that was after the second bleed, I beg your pardon. And that one decision to stop drinking sodas then made it possible for me to take all the other changes and apply them for my nutrition. Obviously, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop eating sugar, stop drinking caffeine, stop eating dairy to an extent. Because I'm Greek, I have to eat cheese a little bit. Um, and that was what snowballed into me improving my health and well-being. I was healthier at 37 than I had been, for decades. And when I look back at the key moments in my recovery, that was one of the key moments. Just that, what you said, that one little decision that seemed like ridiculously unnecessary, that actually snowballed and became this other thing where now if somebody says to me, let's go to dinner and there's pasta on the menu, I won't eat pasta. I don't know when the last time was that I ate pasta, because it actually puts me into a food coma
Oh
almost
yeah.
immediately. I can't
A,
cope
f-
with it.
a food coma for a stroke survivor is a completely different feeling too.
Yeah.
It's like the level of brain fog
Yeah.
and just like you're useless
Yeah.
for hours until you digest the stuff. Like you're
Yeah.
mentally you're there, but you're not really
You're wiped out.
conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. Uh, your next question is, what has stroke taught you?
Um, so much. Means so much. I spent so long unable to work and just trying to figure out my seizure meds and trying to figure out my health in general, trying to, stroke broke my sleep. It broke my ability to enjoy foods. Uh, it broke my confidence. It broke some friendships, relationships. You find out who's really there, even if you're not available all the time. And so I had to figure all of those things out. And for the most part, by yourself, you have to, people can tell you certain things. And for me, at least, I know that, like, no matter how many times somebody tells me something, it might even be the right thing. I'm not going to really learn it until I learn it the hard way myself. And so just all of those things, like how to eat in a way that I can still function properly post stroke, what I need to sleep, I've learned, uh, who my real friends are, and the people and the relationships that are important to me, who I am and what I want to do with my life. Stroke taught me. It's changed my career direction. Um, it's just so much. I can hardly name things I've learned that stroke didn't teach me, like, honestly. Like the things, like, as an adult, and like the most meaningful things in life to me, I feel like all came from stroke. Like, really, my life completely changed, and I feel like so much of it is for the better. So that's a tough question to answer.
Yeah, you answered it well. Thank you, man. And then finally, what do you want to tell other people who are very early on in this journey and are listening to this podcast? Maybe it's the first one they've listened to and they're curious. What do you want to tell them?
Yeah, if you're in the recovery process, figure out what works for you. It's not going to be the same for everybody. That's the main thing. All of these brain injuries are so different, and it's great, which I'm sure you've seen. Like, you've interviewed so many people now, and you see similarities, and the doctors see similarities, and it's like, oh, you have a right side thing, so you're going to experience this, or oh, it's a left side bleed or stroke, so you'll experience this, but it's not always the same. And so you just got to figure out what works for you. What worked with the big main thing that worked for me, I'd say two things. Hydration. I put I'd put it number one. It's a very close. It's close between one and two, but I'd say hydration. Like, I wake up and I drink 40 ounces of water first thing in the morning before I do anything else. I also have to take seizure medication, so they all, any medication, hydration is important. But I feel like my recovery really started to turn around when I started to drink more water. Uh, I don't know, can't explain it why, but give it a try.
We're
If you're
90%. Are we 80% or 90% water? What's the
something like
number?
that. I've
Yeah.
heard it so many, who knows? I've forgotten it plenty of times, but your brain needs a lot of water to function. If you're struggling at all and you don't drink a lot of water, or you drink a lot of soda, replace the soda with water, do whatever you can. Try drinking more water, see if it helps for you. The second thing is sleep. Like, you have to figure out your sleep. If you're struggling with your sleep at all, your recovery is going to slow down so much. So try different things. What worked for me was, I was very sensitive to everything: light, sound, temperature. Temperature is still, I don't enjoy the heat. I used to love the heat. I used to be a beach person. I love summertime. I could go to the beach. It's 100 degrees. Who cares? I can't do that anymore. I have a personal fan. I keep one of these on me in the summertime. So this is part of the advice, right? Like, if heat's your thing, find a little remote or a little pocket fan that you can keep with you. And
Love
you're
it.
too hot, you know what? Deal with it. Figure it out. Get cooler.
Love it.
But yeah, sleep. If temperature is a thing and you need a fan because you're too hot, which was my problem, I could not sleep. I was too hot. I had to turn off every light. I had to put a sticker over every little blinking light on any device in the room. I wore an eye mask. Uh, what else did I do? Oh, sound. Sound was annoying for me. Every little sound. You know, you go to a restaurant. I used to be able to focus on just the person talking to you. Not the case anymore. I hear every conversation. I hear every fork hitting every plate everywhere in the whole building. So I had to buy a noise machine. I bought a noise machine. I researched, you know, white noise, like the staticky noise from the TV. So there's white noise, there's brown noise, there's pink noise. And we have different stages of sleep when we go to sleep. There's the deep sleep cycle, which is very important. Then there's the REM sleep cycle where you're dreaming. And that's kind of where your brain cleanses itself and where you remember things and learn things that you learn throughout the day. So apparently, I might have this switched up, but pink noise and brown noise. I think brown noise is probably deep sleep and pink noise is maybe REM sleep. But those noise noise frequencies while you sleep can help promote those different you know, sleep states. And I found that pink noise on a noise machine when I sleep gave me the best sleep. And so once I cut out these little light distractions and once I cut out noise distractions and once I got the temperature right, I have a mattress topper that is filled with water and circulates water at any temperature that I want. So in the summertime, I set it to like 50 degrees. In the wintertime, if I'm too cold, which is very rare, but if I'm too cold in the winter, I'll put it up to like 80 degrees. But that keeps me at a comfortable temperature the entire night. I have a sound machine which is blocking out all the distractive noise. I have all the light figured out in my room. I don't use bright lights. I use warmer lights. My lights are remote controlled. I can change the color of my lights. So those are the two things that I think helped the most with me was figuring out my sleep, which is complicated. Like I said, there's a lot of aspects to it, and then water. I already don't drink. I'm not a big drinker, but I would just focus on hydration and sleep. If you're struggling at all in your recovery, focus on those two things first. And I think that's a great base and it's going to help you with everything else. Because it's hard to learn new things if you're not sleeping right, and it's hard to function if you're not hydrated.
Hard to solve problems, hard to get tasks done the following day. And it's cumulative. Every day that you don't get good sleep, it impacts the next day and so on. So you want to sort that out. There's a chapter in the book about sleep, and it talks
not there yet.
Yeah, talks about the stuff that you spoke about, a lot about that stuff. And it's the book's designed to kind of give people just a small insight into the things that are important that help, and then hopefully they get curious about one of those and then go down that journey. But sleep was one of my things that I got curious about. But I got to say, I didn't go to the path of getting a floating waterbed thing on top of my. I love the way that
It's
your
pricey.
engineering brain has
Yeah.
actually taken, this to the next level. That sounds fantastic. And if you can share, not if you can, I'll make you share the link to that product, and then I'll put
For
it in the
sure.
show notes. And if anyone's interested, they can have a look at it.
It's very pricey, so I'll give
Yeah.
you a couple options. There's a blanket that I love, which is just it's like a fabric that was designed by NASA that absorbs heat, and so it feels cold when you put it on. It's like it has silver in it or something, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that's a much cheaper alternative. I'll give you both because the water thing is like $1,000. You know, I know, understand not everybody has that,
Yeah.
especially a stroke survivor. Maybe you're not working as much as you used to, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So if you can afford the high end, go for it. Otherwise, I'll also give you this little cheaper blanket option. But when I
Awesome.
travel, I'll take that blanket with me because I don't want to lug around a whole mattress topper and a little box with water in it. But
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
All right. I hear you. I hear you. Well, Chet, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Bill. It's great. I don't get to talk to survivors like, I message people on Instagram all the time or whatever, but have a conversation with them. It's awesome.
Yeah, me too. I didn't get to talk to stroke survivors either. So now I've got 290 stroke survivors I've spoken to.
Yeah, I got a lot to catch up to you.
Man, that's
But maybe I'll get there with my new career maybe. So I'll let
man,
you know when I pass you up.
absolutely love it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again for joining us on today's episode. To get a copy of my book about stroke recovery from Amazon, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book, and there you'll find all the Amazon links. To learn more about my guests, including links to their social media and to download a transcript of the entire interview, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. Thank you to everyone who has already left a review for the podcast. It means the world to me. Podcasts live and thrive because of reviews. And when you leave a review, you are helping other people who are just like you and in need of this type of content to find it easier. And that's making a massive difference in their stroke recovery. Uh, if you haven't left a review and would like to, the best way to do it is to go to your favorite podcast app, leave a 5-star review. You can do that on Spotify and iTunes, and a few words about what the show means to you. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video, like the episode. To get notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show and hit the notifications bell. If you're a stroke survivor with a story to share about your experience, come and join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do is be a stroke survivor who wants to share their story in the hope that it will help someone else going through something similar. If you're a researcher who wants to share the findings of a recent study, or you're looking to recruit people into studies, you may also wish to reach out and be a guest on my show. If you have a commercial product that you would like to promote that is related to supporting stroke survivors to recover, there is also a path for you to join me on a sponsored episode of the show. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the form explaining briefly which category you belong to, and I will respond with more details about how we can connect via Zoom. Thanks again for being here and listening. I deeply appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.